when people look at me, they're like, "Are you Chinese?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm Chinese, but I'm also Singaporean." So I've met many people while I was traveling in Australia, and the number one question people ask me when I tell them that I'm Singaporean is, "What language does Singapore speak?" So I'm here to break it down for you. And if you don't know, my name is Bao. I haven't done a video in my room for the longest time, but look, my fake gun is still alive. Been born in Singapore. I don't actually know that it is not a common culture that we live in. We have many races living in the same small country, and actually that kind of intrigues many people. So when people look at me, they're like, "Are you Chinese?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm Chinese, but I'm also Singaporean." And that actually befuddles, is that a word? Befuddles a lot of people. And if you just want a short answer, actually our common language, our first language is English. So you can stop watching now if you already got your answer. But I'm gonna dive a little bit deeper for today's video, okay? So we actually also speak everything, if that makes sense. That doesn't make sense, right? So everyone in Singapore, at least the younger generation, we can definitely speak English, but we can also speak our mother tongue. If you have watched Crazy Rich Asians, you may have a romanticized version of how we live, but that's not actually true, okay? I mean, obviously they say crazy rich. And in the movie, actually every single person speaks English well, right? So more or less you got your answer from that, which is we speak English. So many people have heard of us and they are always very curious about Singapore. So I'm gonna break it down. The info that I collected are from NLB website. So NLB is National Library Board in Singapore. So it may be a little bit biased, but from what I see, they are pretty factual. I mean, if you pass a law in 1978, it's got to be 1978. It won't be like 1979 and a half, right? I will link the link that I found the facts from. You can take a look if you want to. And I also put together some pieces that my dad told my siblings and I when we were young. So some pieces of information may not be accurate, or it may be a little bit more biased because I'm a person and like everyone is biased to a certain point, okay? So if you're Singaporean, don't watch this unless you know a little bit more about your country, which I realized a lot of us don't really know. How come we ended up as a non-vernacular system? So let's dive right in. So people in China speak Chinese. People in Thailand speak Thai. People in Korea speak Korean. And people from... You got my point. You got my point, right? So what about Singaporeans? Do we speak like Singlish? Actually, we kind of do speak Singlish, but I'm not going to talk about it for at least now. So our general idea is that, okay, if you're from Germany, you speak German. So your country is also directly indicative of the language that you speak. But for Singapore, that is actually not true. Like, how come Japalang? Japalang is like a mixture of like random things. I don't even know what language that is, okay? So that is how diverse we are. So in Singapore, we have 4 main races. Basically, the majority would be Chinese, followed by I think Malay, and then we have Tamil or Hindi, and then Eurasian. I've never really known what Eurasian means. I think I'll find out after this video, or maybe I'll just put it here. So our educational system is mainly English oriented. So it's all in English. So our math questions will be in English. Our science questions will be in English. Our main language, our first language is English. But we also have mother tongue. So mother tongue depends on your race. So usually if you're a Chinese, you will choose Chinese as your mother tongue lesson. So it's a lesson, okay? So that is your second language. And then if you're a Malay, usually you will choose Malay. Or if you're Indian, you choose either Tamil or Hindi, okay? I actually heard from my friend that you can actually take another language that is not your race language. So I actually have a Chinese friend who told me that he took German as his second language. So that is unheard of, okay? But that means you can choose what language you want for your second language, I guess. But usually by default, it depends on your race. So this is why almost every single Singaporean is bilingual. Why did I say almost? Is because I can't say for certain that everyone in the older generation can speak English well. Okay, so more or less they can pick up certain phrases at least, and they can answer you maybe in broken sentences. And I'm not trying to be mean or anything. It actually boils down to what happened previously in our educational system. Previously, in the early 19th century to the mid 20th century, we had a vernacular education system. What is a vernacular education system? I also just learned it, okay? It means that if you're a Chinese, you go to a Chinese school, and if you're a Malay, you go to a Malay school, and if you're an Indian, you go to an Indian school. That's about all I know about a vernacular education system. So you can understand why they weren't learning English. At that time, different races, they don't really mingle. So that's why they go to specific schools to learn in their own language. Schools were set up by philanthropies, clan associations, and missionary groups with limited assistance from the British government. So we were a British colony. The schools were set up, say if I'm a Chinese and specifically my dialect is Hokkien, I open a school specifically for Hokkien people. Okay, so I will not be catering to say like Teochew people or Malays or Indians, you know. So if you're a Singaporean, you will know that, and you better know that we gained independence in 1965. And only after we gained independence did parents start to send their children to English medium schools. So Tamil schools have mostly disappeared in 1970s, followed by Malay and Chinese schools in 1980s. Only in 1987 did all our schools become English medium schools. So if you were a student before then, there is a high chance that you didn't learn English growing up, and that's why you won't be good at it. So it's understandable, right? So if you're a Singaporean, you will also know that our founding father, our PM at that time, Mr. Lee Kuan Yew, he actually pushed English as the main language. It has a few reasons, okay? He wants every single race to be able to unite and live together. So that can only happen if we are speaking the same language, right? So it is very important that we communicate each other's differences. What I also believe is it's also the language that was left by the British. There is no one to say like, oh, okay, my language should be the first language or the main language. It is just a very smart choice to be choosing English as the main language to speak. And I found this from Reddit because then America was where all the MNCs are at. So it also makes sense that you choose English as our main language, and it will be easier to do business with them if you speak their language. It was in December 1983 that the Ministry of Education in Singapore announced that we are going to have English as the main first language of every school. So it was only completely phased out in 1987. So if you only went into the education system in 1987 onwards, then I can say for certain that your English, the person that you are speaking to, his or her English will be at least average or pretty good. Okay. So my dad was born in the 1960s. He didn't go into school after they made changes. So he only started learning English during his work life. Definitely you can't fault them for not speaking good English. So he's actually still learning English as he goes. As we know, language is a lifelong process. If you watch my previous video on my journey learning Spanish, which I'll put it like somewhere, that's why I can say that most of them, they are very determined to learn English, even though it's actually pretty difficult to learn the grammar and everything. So they actually can understand and they can speak more or less understandable sentences. Should I talk about Singlish? Actually, I won't really talk about Singlish because, okay, I think I don't have a choice. I have to talk about Singlish. Okay, so Singlish actually is the natural result of different cultures coming together, and because we interact with each other so much that we start to adopt each other's language. If you have read a little bit about Singapore, you will know that we speak with certain words added to the back of our sentences like la, or we like to say a something. What happened, I believe, my personal opinion, don't come at me, is say like la actually is also used as a casual term in Chinese language and also in the Malay language. So when they just start to interact and we are all bilingual right in school, as we come together, we start to add our own backgrounds, culture into the English language, and that is how Singlish came about. I think that is the best way I can explain this. So that's why we actually kind of butchered the English language a little, but not really butchered. I don't really mean butchered, please don't come at me. What I mean is that we kind of created a little bit of something new. Actually, that is very common with places that speak English in different parts of the world. So if you go to Australia, you know that they speak English differently, and if you go to UK, you know they have their we all love the UK accent, right? And we also have American English. Even different parts of Australia, they speak different English. If that makes sense. Does that make sense? Okay, so I feel in Singapore, it's just that we are famous for speaking Singlish, but actually every part of the world is doing that, and it's just part of us, okay? I'm not saying I'm proud, I'm not saying I'm embarrassed, I'm just saying that it is just a part of us, okay? And if you want to blend into our culture, there is no need to pretend you speak Singlish. There is no need, we still understand English just fine. So if you're a Chinese and you're wondering if 我们可以说中文吗? And actually the truth is that 我们可以说中文. You must choose Chinese to speak it to. Don't choose like the wrong people, because they'll be wrong. And if you speak Malay to a Malay, they will be able to speak Malay. And if you speak Tamil or Hindi to an Indian, then most likely they will be able to speak Tamil or Hindi, whichever they chose in their education. So we speak many things, but we are one diverse country. And we have lots of amazing food, so remember to visit us. So there you have it. If you like this video, you can like it. You can also subscribe if you like me as a person. Thank you so much. Okay, bye.